want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Got your message about George, you okay?
I don't know.
George? It's okay.
Is it me or is he considerably bigger?
No, he's definitely bigger.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Everything You Need to Know, where we break down all the coolest facts about upcoming movies. On this edition, I'll be discussing Dwayne Johnson's upcoming sci-fi action film, Rampage. So let's get started. The original Rampage arcade game came out in 1986 by Midway Games, was later ported to Atari, Nintendo, and Sega systems. There have since been several sequels, including Rampage World Tour, Rampage 2 Universal Tour, and more. In the original game, the monsters you controlled were originally human beings who were subject to radiation, thus mutating into giant animals. This movie will, however, not utilize this element, instead focusing on actual animals mutating to enormous sizes. Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, plays David Okoye, no relation to the Black Panther character, a primatologist who cares more about animals than he does people, with a special silverback gorilla named George acting as his best friend in the whole world. The albino gorilla George was created using motion capture performance from actor Jason Liles, also seen recently as Ryuk in Death Note. The actor spent time working with famed motion capture actor Terry Notary, who is best known for his work in Planet of the Apes and Kong Skull Island, in order to create George for Rampage. George is actually based on a real-life gorilla named Snowflake, but don't worry, he's not 50 feet tall and will not destroy your home. A major reason for making George an albino gorilla, as opposed to a brown or a black one, is because they wanted him to stand out from other recent big-screen apes, like Planet of the Apes and also King Kong. Producer Hiram Garcia compared the relationship of George and Davis to that of Han Solo and Chewbacca from Star Wars, in terms of how much they care for each other and how well they communicate. The movie opens with a scene in outer space wherein scientists are working on a special genetic serum that eventually gets loose and crashes to Earth. These three samples fall into various parts of America, including the swamps of Florida, the wilderness of Wyoming, and the San Diego Zoo. The three animals that are infected in the film are a wolf named Frank, a crocodile named Lizzie, and Davis's best friend George. These are actually the names of the monsters from the original 1986 game. Each monster's size is based on how much they were affected by the serum. For instance, George only gets a small whiff of it, so he grows to about 35 feet tall, and for the most part retains the same look of a gorilla. On the other side of the spectrum, Lizzie was essentially drenched in it, so he grows to about the size of 4 football fields and begins to take on the form of some sort of Game of Thrones dragon, with tusks. Aside from George, the animals will not be bipedal like they are in the game. For the sake of retaining a sense of realism, the other two monsters will remain on 4 legs, much like their normal forms. In the end, the monsters all end up heading for Chicago, as a giant beacon on top of Willis Tower attracts them to the city, which will be the stage for the final climax. Director Brad Peyton said that when he was pitched the movie, the idea was thrown out by the studio to have humans transforming into monsters. Peyton said this did not interest him and said he wanted to do something more grounded in terms of story. In his words, he passed on making Rockzilla. Johnson has worked with Peyton more than any other film director in his filmography. This is the third movie they've done together, with the previous 2 being Journey to the Mysterious Island and San Andreas. The movie utilizes a real-life science project known as CRISPR, or CRISPR, which involves taking out damaged genes from one species of animal and then injecting the same animal with genes from other animals, in the hope that the animal will gain certain characteristics from other species. In the words of producer John Rickard, it's all about pulling out bad attributes and putting the good ones in. For instance, DNA from a rat could be extracted, and if a scientist wished to give the rat heightened sense of smell, they would inject it with DNA from, say, a shark or a bloodhound. This is why the infected animals in the movie, like the crocodile, begin to take on characteristics of other animals. It's actually pretty fascinating.
It's worth a Google.
Actress Naomie Harris plays Kate, a disgraced scientist who works for the organization Energen, which developed the very serum that infected the animals. Her and Davis have a very combative relationship at first, with the latter not even wanting her on the journey to begin with. Joe Manganiello plays Burke, the head of a special ops organization named Black Hill, whose early mission involves heading to Wyoming to retrieve the sample that fell there, and who ends up having an encounter with Frank the Wolf. Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays Agent Harvey Russell, a government agent who works to try and control the monster threat, which involves locking George in a cage and placing him in an airplane. Bad idea. Malin Ackerman and Jake Lacy play the villains of the movie, with Ackerman's Claire Wyden acting as the more dominant and calculative of the duo, with Lacy being sort of a dunce. By the end of the movie, George and Davis will team up to take on the final two creatures, in what will surely be a fair fight. Though the filmmakers were intent on trying to make this one solid great movie, they admitted that they left room open for more movies. Rampage production designer Barry Chusid has experience in the sci-fi and city-destroying arena. Across his career, he's worked on movies like The Day After Tomorrow, Serenity, 2012, Independence Day Resurgence, and Peyton's recent film, San Andreas. Naturally, there is room after this movie for a sequel. This is JoeBlow.com signing off, and we'll see you next time on Everything You Need to Know. Catch Rampage in theaters on April 11th.
I need to find someone who knows exactly what the hell this thing is.
I found her. No, that's a lie. Technically, she found us.
What's happening to my friend?
Are you familiar with genetic editing? Changes will be incredibly unpredictable. Increased strength,
George!
speed, agility.
No!
Crowded cells and chains that can't run.
Where's George? I need to see him.
He is dangerous.
I think it's time for me to turn the middle around.
We're gonna die!
Probably!
We've created the next chapter in natural selection. Project Rampage works.
You got another one of your little science experiments running around.
What do you mean another one? Incoming!
Sound the alarm, it's time to cross the line.
Of course, the wolf flies.
Stop me. Oh, somebody stop me. Stop me. Please, somebody stop me. Oh, somebody stop me.
It's time we throw everything we can at these things and get people the hell out of that city.
Let's go save the world. That's a big arm. Don't fight it.
You know there are other ways of dealing with people, right?
I do know that, yeah, but that's no fun. George? You okay? Ready to do this, buddy?